And a leading cleric is the latest high-profile figure to join the anti-government movement. My correspondent AlJazeera joins us now live from Sana'a. So just talk us through the significance of this particular cleric joining in the protests.
Very significant because the man is the member of the senior Supreme Council of the Muslim Brotherhood Islah Party. In that capacity, he holds sway over one of the most powerful parties in Yemen, and also he is member of the Council of Yemen's Clerics, the most powerful independent body of clerics in Yemen. In that capacity also, this is somebody who has huge leverage over people. We are amid the perfect deadlock here in Yemen. A president who says that he will continue to fight for what he describes as a divine and legitimate right to stay in power till 2013. On the other hand, you have young protesters who are saying that they will continue their fight and that the will of change is unstoppable. President Saleh offering a new explanation to the pro-reform movement sweeping the Arab world. A conspiracy, he says, led by the Israelis and the Americans to undermine the Muslim world.
There is a media control room in Tel Aviv, which is the cause of all these problems sweeping the Arab world, and the protesters are just mimicking them. These events are managed by the White House. We hear statements by President Obama asking the Egyptians to do this, then telling the Tunisians to do that. This is none of your business, Mr. President. You are the President of the United States, not the Arab world.
President Saleh challenged the opposition to let the people decide who should represent them in new elections. An offer brushed aside by the opposition and the anti-government protesters who once again converged on this square near the university campus asking for Saleh's departure.
Mr. President, if you love your country and care for its unity, and if you are genuine about preventing bloodshed, go. Nobody wants you. You will eventually have to go.
We are in a situation where the government and the protesters stand their grounds. President Saleh has offered a reform package, but these people are telling him that this extraordinary build-up in anti-government momentum is a clear message to him that he has to go and that he has to do that now. The atmosphere here is festive and defiant. Demonstrators chanting in one voice, Saleh has to leave. Not far from here, a parallel demonstration of Saleh's loyalists waving flags and brandishing his posters. They say they are ready to fight to death for their leader, raising the prospect of a protracted standoff in a country beset by internal conflicts.
So you mentioned this kind of standoff going on. Where's the momentum at the moment? I mean, is it with the protesters? I mean, there's been some talk and some reports that Taiz, one of the areas in Yemen, is a bit like Benghazi was in Libya, and that it could the momentum could go that way.
Well, the momentum is definitely swinging for the anti-government protesters because what they have done is remarkable. They've come a long way. Just about 2 weeks ago, they decided to take to the streets. They were sort of sidelined by the traditional elite and also by the opposition parties. But within days, they inspired people and they've gathered more momentum and more support among thousands of Yemenis who are now inspired by what they're seeing in the Arab world, and they would like to emulate exactly what's happening in Tunisia, Egypt, and also in Libya. This is exactly why the government is nervous about this build-up of momentum in Yemen. And this is why President Saleh is saying that you have to understand that Yemen is not like Tunisia and Egypt, and that if you still insist that you have to bring about change by taking to the streets, you just will drive the country towards more anarchy. You have to listen to me, you have to negotiate with me, otherwise you have to be responsible for what could be bloodshed in the country.
OK, Hashim, thank you very much indeed for that insight there into events in Yemen. Let's take a look at some of the other protests in the region. In Yemen's neighbour, Oman, troops have fired into the air to break up anti-government protests in the city of Sohar. It's the fourth day of protests there that saw at least one person killed on Saturday. Sultan Qaboos bin Said, who's been in power for 4 decades, has promised more jobs and better unemployment benefits. Iranian opposition groups have planned demonstrations on Tuesday against the detention of their leaders Mir Hossein Mousavi and Mehdi Karoubi. The two have been under house arrest for more than 2 weeks for illegally organising protests. It's been reported that the security forces have moved them to an unknown location, but the authorities have denied this. And there are protests being held in Jordan, where mass rallies are being planned for Friday. A reform group has published a declaration called the Constitutional Monarchy Initiative online. They want King Abdullah to give up many of his powers. In Tunisia, calm has returned to the capital after clashes that killed several people. 2 more ministers from the caretaker government have resigned in response to protesters' demands. It was the worst violence since former President Zine El Abidine Ben Ali stepped down on January the 14th. And the rights group Amnesty International has released a report documenting human rights abuses during the revolution. Well, it finds that Tunisian authorities used excessive force, including lethal fire, in circumstances where it was unjustifiable. And it concludes that torture and other ill treatment appeared to be widespread and systematic across the country. It calls on the Tunisian authorities to end impunity for human rights abuses immediately and to allow an independent and transparent investigation by the commission they set up after the revolution. Well, it's the most comprehensive report yet into Tunisia's human rights violations. More than 200 people died in the violence surrounding the revolution. And one of the heaviest death tolls was in Kesserine, a small town in the south of the country. Nazneen Mashiri reports.
Nizar Geriri is a key witness. A gunshot in the groin went straight through him, leaving him permanently disabled. He says it was snipers who fired on him.
They were all in black, with helmets like you see in the movies, like black tigers. You couldn't see their eyes.
This amateur video taken by a protester shows security forces dressed in black on a rooftop. Their uniforms different to riot police and local forces. People here say they may have even been part of a separate militia. Dr. Mahjoub Ghari, head of intensive care at Kesserine's main hospital, examined many of the bodies. He says these were professional killings.
The shots targeted the brain, the neck, the chest and the stomach. Therefore, these were murders. The bullets used were strange. They blew up inside the body. The corpses have small holes of ½ centimeter, and it becomes practically impossible to save the victim.
This is where many of the deaths happened, the roundabout now known as Martyrs Square. The names and ages of the victims recorded on this monument. This is where one of the snipers was located, on this rooftop with a vantage point across the entire square. It's not clear whether these shooters were part of the Presidential Guard or connected to the Ministry of Interior. What people here want is those responsible found and brought to justice. Tunisia's interim government says its new Human Rights Commission is investigating crimes here in Kesserine and other parts of the country. But so far, no officials have visited the family of Mohamed Amin Mbarki. The 17-year-old was one of the